wasn't until the broker who I worked with, he asked me the $1 million question. And how ironic is it? Like, he asked me a marketing question. He's like, who are you looking for? Like, when you're going to all these areas, like, who's your customer? And I was like, oh my goodness, New York City, like, literally made me go crazy, because here I am trying to understand streets and whatnot. And I forget the one basic principle, which is, who's your customer? And for me, having worked at America's Cup Yogurt, I'm like, I want that young millennial female. Like, that's who I see as the biggest influencer, both in her family and her peer network. And quite frankly, most of dessert, not just frozen yogurt, but most of dessert, it skews heavily female. That's the constituent. That's the buyer. And so to me, I'm like, I'm looking for like the 18 to 34-year-old female. Like, that's my sweet spot. And he's like, well, if you want the 18-year-old female, go by NYU. And I'm like, oh, I heard of NYU. Yeah, let's go visit the campus. Again, only to realize, well, the buildings, it's not really like a traditional campus. And I'm like, okay. So I forgot everything that I looked at for 3 weeks. And I just said, okay, I'm going to put my marketing hat back on. And I said, all right, where are the biggest freshman dorms, right? Because that's where every year they're replenishing me new customers who, if they fall in love with what I build, I'm going to have loyal customers for 4 years, and they're going to keep bringing me new ones. So I'm like, it's like a feeding cycle. I was like, I think that's a good strategy. And he's like, well, the biggest freshman dorms are in East Village. And he goes, but I'm telling you, you do not want to open over there. And I was like, you just told me that's my answer. Like, you walked me through this whole exercise, and now you're telling me not. I go, we need to look over there. Show me the dorm. And so it was like on the corner of 10th Street and 3rd Avenue is like one of the largest freshman dormitories. And then so we did a 4-block walking radius around there. And during that time, I saw like 10 frozen dessert shops. And so he was just like, look, kid. He would call me a kid. He's like, look, kid. He's like, I'm an old, born and raised New York City Jew. He goes, I know. And he goes, and you don't know anything about New York City. Your family's money, don't open here, right? There's already 10, don't do it. Let me take you to parts of New York City where there's 0 frozen dessert shops in a 4-block radius. And I said, absolutely not. And then he was just like, what are you talking about? And I said, wow. And I think the first principle here, Jared, is like, again, always looking at the glass as being half full. As an entrepreneur, you have to do that. And because when everyone sees it one way and they see a down market, or this isn't good, the person who can see, no, there's something there that nobody else sees, that gem, that's what gives them the spark to be able to create something, magical. And he was like, why are you not listening to anything I'm saying? I am. What you're telling me is that all 10 of these guys are able to operate in this marketplace, pay these rents, and they're all here. Yeah. Like, that to me means that, like, isn't this the biggest pie or the biggest swirl or whatever, like the biggest scoop in terms of like frozen dessert, like in all of New York City? He goes, probably all of the US. He goes, there's no such thing as 10 frozen dessert shops in a 4-block radius. And I was like, exactly. That and my demographics that I'm looking for is clearly here, because you show me they live here. So to me, the challenge is, if I come in and I can beat each one of them and I become number one, I go, just tickle me fancy here. Will New Yorkers say, well, 16 Handles is the best frozen dessert shop if I beat these 10? And he's like, yeah, but how are you going to do that? See, but that's the thing. The how I know how to do. Exactly. The formula. I learned. I got something here, right? I go, where? I have no idea, but this is where it is. And to me, the why, which is, again, because if I want to become the best, it's not me saying I'm the best. I'm not going to put out ads saying we're number one. Like, to be number one, it's the people say you're number one. Yep, totally. And ultimately say you're number one. Yep, totally. And ultimately, there's a way to justify it also. It's by sales. If you are number one in sales, that means they're voting you as number one with their dollars. So however you want to look at it, is you are the most successful in that area. And so I said, like, you got to find me a spot here. He begrudgingly, showed me some locations. The one I landed on, which is 2nd Avenue between 9th and 10th. We celebrated our 12th birthday, this past July. Right. That location, I looked inside and I was like, I go, a little smaller than what I'd like, but considering the rent in New York City is so expensive, I'll make it work. I'll fit it in here. And I said, like, and they have like a walk-in freezer built out in the basement. All the electrical upgrades are done. I was like, he's just like, he didn't want me to take the space. And I was like, hey, what was this before it closed? Because it was empty, like it was gutted up. He goes, oh, funny you should ask. This was a Cold Stone Creamery. He goes, they only have like 1,500 ice cream shops around the world. Yeah, they didn't make it here. And I was just like, and when did they close? He's like, like 5 months ago. And I was like, so up until 5 months ago, people were walking here expecting to get like customized ice cream. I was like, all right, that's cool. And then so he's like, once again, he's like, are you not listening to him? I am. I was like, but again, I'm hearing it. I'm listening to you, but I'm hearing it very, I'm hearing you, but I'm listening to it very differently, right?
Different thing. Yep.
And so, so I was like, I'm going to take the spot. And that's what sparked it. And, I opened up that location July 16, 2008.
Wow.
And it's been a journey ever since. I started franchising in 2010. So about a year and a half after that.
Wow.
And this has all been through that organic growth.